Hello students, welcome to your first foundational class for Sociology optional. So the core principle which we're going to follow for all of our classes is that we are going to understand sociology in a very simplistic. Whatever the concepts we're going to read and learn, we will be reading keeping on focus that what is the basic meaning of that particular concept is and how we are going to utilize or analyze that concept in contemporary perspectives. Okay, be it thinker, be it concepts, whatever the understanding we're going to make, that understanding will be based on the simplistic formats. Then, so now start first with analyzing the syllabus of paper 1. So there are 10 different chapters related to paper 1 which we're going to cover from paper 1 perspective. The first is sociology, the discipline. Now, what we're going to read in sociology, the discipline? We are going to read about modernity and social changes in Europe and emergence of sociology. Then we are going to read about the scope of sociology and its comparison with other social sciences. And the third major component is about sociology and common sense. Okay. Now I have underlined one thing here which is about modernity and social changes. Now let's read the 10th chapter of our paper 1, social change in modern society. So from first chapter to 10th chapter, we are going to focus about social change. Okay. Now what does this mean? So whole of our sociology, be it in paper 1 or paper 2, talks about transformation of society. This transformation is nothing but social change. So a subject which is born because of social changes which we have seen in Europe, which we will be dealing later on in the lecture, that makes the crux of whole sociology which we're going to focus upon from paper 1 to paper 2, from first chapter to the last chapter. Okay. So what does this social change mean? Social change means nothing but transformation, transition of society from one phase to another. Be it any thinker from Auguste Comte to Karl Marx, from Max Weber to Emil Durkheim, everyone talks about social change in society. Some talks about how we are going to maintain that equilibrium, how we are going to maintain that social solidarity. And people like Karl Marx talk about revolution and social change. So social change is core concept which we're going to focus upon from first to the last, be it in paper 1 or be it in paper 2. You will be listening to this word lot of times in the lectures. Okay. Now, second important thing which I'm going to highlight is that we should be understanding what are the important chapters we have for paper 1 as well as in paper 2. So today I'm going to make you understand the syllabus of paper 1 in a very simplistic format. Now, the first chapter, as we have seen, is sociology, the discipline. In the orientation lecture, which you guys must have seen, I have told you about that what is sociology is all about. Sociology is a discipline, is a subject where we focus on systematic study of social institutions, social change, social process, social and human behavior. Okay. So whatever the things we are seeing in society, we are gonna understand that particular concepts, that particular changes, that particular processes, that particular institutions, and in a systematic way. That means me using the scientific methods and analysis. That is what sociology is all about. Okay. Now, how we are going to learn that what are the important chapters which we have in paper 1. Similarly, consider the birth of a child. Okay. Now, a child's life start from its birth. But before birth in a traditional setup, there must be something which would have happened. So the marriage between parents. The marriage between parents has led to the birth of that particular child. So for us, this marriage is nothing but, to understanding the syllabus, this marriage is nothing but the social changes which were happening in Europe, which changed the society in such a way that we needed a new subject to understand that chaos and that changes in the society. That's how sociology has taken birth. So first chapter talks about your emergence of sociology and sociology, the discipline. Okay. Now, as the child has taken birth, there is development of him in the coming times that he will be understanding the society at a larger level. But for that understanding, he needs some development of his cognitive ability. Okay, he needs his hands and legs to run and move forward in the life. So those are nothing but your second and third chapter, which is sociology as science and research methods and analysis. Okay. Now, who is going to help him to learn about the society? His parents. Who is going to help him by holding his hand and let him walk in the house, outside the house, etc., in the initial days? His parents. So, for us, the parents of sociology are nothing but the sociological thinkers, which we read in chapter 4. Okay. So, as the socialization will develop, as the cognitive ability will develop, the child will start to understand the society in its various domains. He will understand how hierarchy is maintained in the society, why some people are below him and why some people are above him in the status of class, etc. So that is nothing but your chapter 5, which talks about stratification and mobility. Okay, he will understand about that why his father is going out to do a job every day, why his mother is staying at home. Okay, that is nothing but a setup related to work and economic life, which is our chapter 6. Okay, he will understand that who holds the decision in his family, how the power is distributed in his family. Later on, he will understand about the distribution of power and authority at the larger level of a country. Okay, that is nothing but your chapter 7, which is politics and society. Then he will understand that what are the religious norms, rituals they are following in their home, why they are going to, worship a particular kind of god, why this particular day is important. For example, for Hindus, Tuesday is very much important. For Muslims, Friday is very much important day. What are the reasons behind it? That is nothing but your religion and society. Then he will understand and try to understand and learn about that what is the larger kinship in which he belongs to, why he cannot marry into the different caste, what is caste endogamy, what is exogamy, etc. So that is nothing but your chapter 9, systems of kinship. And then he will try to understand about that how the society has been moving forward, what kind of education he has got. Now, is that education is relevant for understanding or getting him new job in the society? What if he has only accumulated a traditional set of education, traditional set of knowledge, but as the society has been evolving, the knowledge related to AI, artificial intelligence, robotics, etc., become very much important. So how he is going to fit into that particular social change which he has been seeing in society? That is what your last 10th chapter, social change in modern. Okay, so this particular approach is a simplistic approach with which you can understand that how you're gonna learn about the all the chapters in your paper 1. Why this learning or analysis is important for us? Because in the respective lectures, when we will be dealing about sociological dimensions, that how we are going to use sociological dimensions, make different sociological perspectives, or looking for anything related to sociological angle, these 6 chapters, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, these are going to play very much important role. That if you remember these chapters, you can fit anything related to whatever the UPSC has been asking, be it national education policy, be it child labor, be it poverty, be it deprivation, etc. In these 6 chapters and sociological domain, sociological lens will be, you will easily see and easily analyze. Hence, this understanding of syllabus is very much important. Okay. Now, I'm not going to dive deep into the understanding the different parts of other chapters, which we will be doing in the subsequent lectures of ours. So let's move forward to understand what is our today's agenda. So today we are going to read about first emergence of sociology. That how sociology as a subject, as a discipline emerged, what were the reasons for it, and why it emerged. Okay. Now, sociology is generally seen as the newer of all the social sciences, but it is considered as a queen of all social sciences, as given by August Comte. So he says that sociology is queen of social sciences, but it has taken birth around 19th century. So a new subject which is born around 19th century, how that can be called as a queen of social sciences? So we will be talking about all the conditions which has led to the birth of this particular sociology as the discipline. First, there was dark age. Dark age where? In Europe. So we are talking about the 14th and 15th centuries of Europe, or even prior to that. So that Europe which was going through a dark age. What this dark age means? As you must have studied in history also, that Gupta era is called as the golden era in some parameters, but also that era is called as a dark age in the growth of architecture, etc., etc. Now what this dark age means? So dark age generally means the degradation of society in different forms. Dark age generally means degradation of society in different forms. These forms can be related to your art, forms can be related to your politics, these forms can be related to your society at a larger level, these forms can be related to your economy. So the period which is seeing lot of degradation, no innovation, no new forms of growth, be irrespective of the different forms, that means there is larger problems which the social institutions, which the social relationships, which the people who are living there have been facing. Okay, that means whatever the society has been going through, there are different problems. There will be problems related to politics, there will be problem related to economics, there will be problem related to education, there will be problems related to social relations. That means how people have been interacting with each other and how people have been seeing in society. Okay, now as this dark age was continuing in the Europe, this age has a very important agent which is maintaining its continuance. What was that agent which was maintaining its continuance? Why this dark age was consistent for a longer period of time? Why it existed at particular place in the particular time frame? So the major reason was religion. That everything was dictated on the basis of religion. Religious beliefs, religious norms were considered supreme and they can control everything. That means who will be enjoying authority, who will be enjoying power in the society, who holds religion in society, in the traditional setup, who do you think has more power related to use of religion? Here comes church. So the church was holding an absolute authority. Church was holding an absolute authority in polity, There was a role of church in economics, there was a role of church in education, there was a role of church in social relations, there was a role of church. That whatever the church says, it is absolute and it cannot be challenged. Thoughts, or more than thoughts, there were dictates of church on the basis of religious ethos or religious doctrines which were absolute and cannot be challenged by anyone. That's the reason every time you read history, you see that whatever the warrior class which was born, they always used church to increase their dominance in the society. What church has been bringing here? The church has been bringing here nothing but legality to this warriors or warrior class rule on the basis of what? On the basis of religion. That people should obey, people need to obey. They cannot disrespect the rule of church, hence they cannot disrespect the rule of kings or queens. Hence there was a monarchy. Now remember what happens in Indian history. Kushans, who were outsiders, came to India. They started to bring their authority on the Indian people. They started to rule the Indian people. Who supported them? The Brahmans supported them by giving them a categorization of Kshatriya, a working class. No, not working class, a warrior class. This is a warrior class, although they were not belonging to a warrior caste category, but they considered themselves as an warrior caste because of the abrogation which was given by the priestly class at that particular point of time. So they used religion, the priestly class used religion to support the rule of Kushan. That is the reason always you will be seeing that whenever there is a monarchy, a new setup, they tend to use the religion for their growth. Okay, now imagine this in present scenario. Any right-wing political party be it in India, be it in everywhere else, in Spain, in US, etc., etc. What they do first? They try to disseminate their information with the help of religion. That there is a need to change this political setup, there is a need to change the life of people. Why? Because religion has been targeted here. So hence they always use religion. In India, we have been seeing the continuous use of religion from different political parties, be it Hindu right-wing political parties, be it Muslim right-wing political parties. Similarly, in Europe also you have been seeing the rise of right-wing political parties who are using religion. What is happening in US? Why you have been seeing a lot of Christians who are trying to protest, who are trying to uphold the rule of Trump? Because religion has been used there. That this particular person has been working for nothing but the protection of religion. So his authority has been supported by the religion. Similar thing has been happening in India. Okay. So whenever a political party, whenever a warrior class, as we have been seen earlier in the traditional social setup, they always try to use religion. So hence monarchy at that particular point of time was supported by the rule of king. So there was a monocratic rule. Okay, the rule of one person, not the rule of democracy, not the will of people. Okay, then economics. So whatever the economy we have been seeing at that particular point of time, that was also controlled by church. Whatever the economy you have been seeing during the dark ages is also controlled by church as well as the monarchs. On the basis of what? Again on the basis of religious doctrines or religious dictates. That religion says that you don't need to save more. Whatever the money you have, you should be giving that money, you should be giving that particular gold to church and monarch, because this belongs to them only. Why? Because religion says so. Okay, so economy has been controlled, politics has been controlled. Then education, that whatever the education the society is going to have, that education will have religious ethos. There is no secular religion. Whatever the church says, you have to accept that. And church will decide who will get that particular education and who will not get that particular education. Like how we say in the India, whenever you will be reading the ancient Indian history, you will be seeing that education was only controlled by the Brahmins. The Shudras, the Dalits, they were not allowed even to read scriptures, the religious scripts. Okay, so education was controlled by the church. Economy, politics were controlled by the monarchy and church. Similarly, education was also controlled by the monarchy. Then, social relationships, or how the people have been arranged, the arrangement of society in different forms. That was also controlled by the monarchy and church. That there were nobles, first there were clergy, then nobles, and then the commoners. A three-tier strata: clergy, nobles, and common people. They holded 80% of wealth, more than 80% of wealth, but they constitute only 20% of population. They are 80% of population, but have only 20% of wealth. Don't you think this is problematic? Every work is going to be done by these commoners. They have to pay taxes. They have to follow the rules and regulations which have been made by the nobles and clergy. But nobles and clergy, they are not doing any work, they are not paying any taxes. So every burden is lying on common people. They have to produce, they have to sell, then they have to pay for whatever the work they have been doing in the form of taxes to the upper two class. This was what the feudal system, which you will be reading again in your modern history as well. Okay, so everything we have been seeing that is controlled by monarchy, that is controlled by church, on the basis of what? On the basis of religion. So religion is dictating your economy, your social setup, your education, your politics. Okay, so this was the dark age which we have seen, which we had seen in the Europe at that particular point of time. Now what happens? This dark age has been continuing. So this should continue for a very longer period of time. The stability to the dark age, why it changed after some point of time? Why this particular dark age period did not continue till now? Why it is not continuing till now? Because of the rise of different ideas which we have been seeing in the society. First important idea was Renaissance period. The first important idea was Renaissance. Now, what does this Renaissance mean? Renaissance means nothing but reawakening of society. Reawakening of society. So generally, Renaissance is considered as a cultural revolution. Cultural revolution. where it started to question about the role of clergy, the importance they were having on the basis of religion. Okay, it started to focus on human rather than focusing on religion. So, human values, humanism became important, or they considered as the core of society rather than religion. Rather than religion. Okay, that we should be giving importance to the human beings also. Why everything has been dictated on the basis of religion? So this is nothing but reawakening, the cultural awakening of the society at that particular point of time. Human became the core to understand the society. This is mainly seen in the form of art and literature. Okay, you must have seen the Mona Lisa painting made by Leonardo da Vinci. Now, this Mona Lisa painting was one of the earliest paintings where we have seen the emotions given to humans. So earlier, whatever the art, whatever the scriptures, whatever the sculptures you must have been seeing, they were mainly confined only to the religion, only to the gods, only to the divine entities, and not to the common people. Okay, see from the Indian perspective also, that whatever the earlier sculptures, arts you must have been seeing, all were related to the only temples, only gods. We have been seeing different inscriptions or different sculptures of Buddha itself. In some he is meditating, in some he is smiling. Later on, it converted in the form of that they started to sculpting about the monarchs and also monarchs and their relatives too. So it was a period of transition, period of transformation. So here also from religion to the focus shifted to human values. That why can't we give importance to human emotions? Why we have to always focus on religion? That even if a person is sad, we consider that this is wrath of God. Even if person is dying, we said this is because of the God. Even if person is happy, we said this is because of the God. Even if person is marrying, we say this is because of God. Why is that so? Why can't we understand the real interpretation on the basis of which this particular concept or this particular institution has been continued? So this particular period, the Renaissance period, was nothing but a reawakening or the cultural revolution, cultural awakening of society, where we started to focus on humanism, human values. We started to question about the religion, and human became the core. Similarly, in literature, William Shakespeare, that till now the movies have been based on the love stories which the William Shakespeare had written a long time ago. So he started to write or differentiate from the writings of the earlier, which were based on the religion, and now he started to write about love and emotions. Kalidasa also started to write about love and emotion. Vinay Shakuntalam, etc., etc. Books were written at that particular point of time, which you will be reading in your ancient history. In the medieval history period, also you must have been seeing there were different writings which were, emphasizing not only on the religion but also on the human emotions. Okay, Leonardo da Vinci was one of the prominent persons who also talk about the human beings. He also talks about the different diseases. Okay, that if the person has some disease, that disease is not because of the God, but also because of the physical problems the person has been facing. So he gave a solution for that particular part. That's how the medicine has developed in the later phases, which we have been seeing today also. Then, so this was cultural revolution or cultural awakening. Then, second was your reformation. So this is nothing but how the dictates of religion, on the basis of which church was using his authority on the common people, started to question. That earlier the religious doctrines, the religious dictates, the religious virtues were only controlled by the, basically the religious knowledge was only controlled by the church. Before that, nobody has read Bible. Only the people belonging to a certain clergy class, they were reading the Bible. They were reading what religion has been saying, and they are disseminating that information to the larger people, to the common people. So this era has seen the birth of printing press. With the birth of printing press, that led to the copies of Bible seen everywhere in the Europe. Now the people started to know what truly has been written there. Now they started to interpret that particular part as it has been written, rather than focusing on the interpretation which was given by the religious leaders. So the real interpretation which they get, they started to question the dictates of the church as well as the clergy class. And this is the real interpretation. You are giving us the false interpretation. Why? For the growth of your own. Okay. So Martin Luther played a very much important role in this particular phase of society, the Reformation phase. So the true interpretation of religion started to be accepted by the people, and they started to learn about it, and then they started to question about the doctrines which were posed by the church on the common people. Okay. Then your third, scientific revolution. Now, whenever there will be a word related to revolution, revolution means the larger change of society. That all the earlier things, the traditional things, will change to a new thing. There will be no accumulation, no accommodation, but there will be a larger change. So hence comes the scientific revolution. Now the people started to know about that whatever the doctrines the religion has been highlighting, they are false. They are not true to its essence. They are giving us a wrong explanation of the problems which we have been facing. So that started the era of focus on reason, logic, observation, empiricism, that we will start questioning what you have been highlighting here. You are saying that sun revolves around the earth. So there was a questioning that how do you know that sun revolves around the earth? Why can't earth revolves around us? So that how the thought process of Copernicus, Newton, etc., came to light. Okay. Similarly, whatever you have been saying, whatever the church has been saying, what is the logic behind that particular part? Why you have been saying that whenever we are feeling depressed, that is because of the wrath of God. We are in poverty, that is because of the wrath of God. What is the logic behind it? There can be economic logics, there can be political logics, there can be social reasons for that particular poverty. How you can say that this is because of the God only? Okay, then they started to observe that whatever the changes or whatever the things which we have been seeing in the continuance, who are having authority on us, what are the basis of that? Objectivity should be there, na? That why we are feeling that particular authority, why that particular person, particular class holds important position than us. Okay, then they started to find about the reasons for it, facts for it. So this scientific revolution led to the birth of finding reason and logic and objectivity in whatever the people have been facing in that particular point of time, be it any problem. अब हम religion की नहीं मानेंगे. We are not going to focus only on the religious reasons, because that is nothing but a ideological tool which the clergy has been utilizing to control the masses, to control the common people. So we started to focus on the basis of reason and logic. Okay. Then comes your fourth, which is nothing but enlightenment. Enlightenment means to enlighten, to knowledge about something new. Okay, so this was also period on the basis of which the enlightenment also focuses on the reason, also focuses on the logic, to talk about the larger change in the society, that we should be having rights, there should be commoner's will, not the will of only monarch and clergy to rule the society. Okay, there should be, or there is social contract on the basis of which we should be giving authority to someone else. Okay, there should be rights to religion, right to life, right to liberty, etc., etc. So all those new scientific revolutions clubbed with the demand for the larger change in the political setup, the larger change in the economic setup, the larger change in the social setup, that we want rights for us. Why the commoners have been paying all the taxes? Why can't nobles and clergy can also pay the taxes? Why they cannot be part of the ruling class? Okay. Then comes your commercial revolution. So as the society was changing, there was a change from the, not the larger change, but the change was continuing. So the traders, businessmen, they started to questioning on the control of trade routes. Largely, generally, you will be finding in the history also that how the Ottoman Empire was controlling all the trade related to Europe and the larger parts of the world. Now, the traders and businessmen, their sole motive is nothing but profit. So for them, why this Ottoman Empire has been controlling everything, and why can't we move out to do trade with the larger world? Why can't they move out to do trade with Asia and other parts of the world? But the trade route was controlled, not controlled trade route in some way controlled by the Ottoman Empire, and the sea routes which they can use apart from trade route, they were largely controlled by the religious belief only. What was that belief? What was that belief? That whatever the water you have been seeing, whatever the ocean you have been seeing, the world dies after that particular ocean. That means if you are on a ship trying to cross that particular ocean, you will die. Okay, the God has made this particular ocean, and this ocean can exist to a certain point of time. If you are moving outside that particular part of that ocean, you will die, you will fall in the hell. That was belief which was highlighted by the hierarchy. Now these traders and businessmen who wanted to look forward to expansion of their trade, expansion of their business, they started to questioning this religious belief of the church. That this is not right, let us go and explore. And some of them went out and started to explore the sea routes to look for the larger trade association. Okay, and when they came with the products, for example, if someone would have came to India and went with the spices to the Europe, then their particular person must have been supported by the monarchy, that he has founded out a trade route on sea and he has bring gifts from that particular part of the world, which they can sell without giving any taxes to the Ottoman Empire because of the use of trade route. Now land route was not, sea route opened. So hence started the support of monarchy to these traders and business. That every businessman, every trader who wants to go and explore the sea route to find out new products can go out. And here again the religious beliefs was started question, and the focus was on reason, the focus was on rationality, the focus was on reality which was there in the society, rather than focusing on the religious belief. And that led to the birth of your banking system, larger and other financial systems. And this was nothing but also one of the reasons for colonization of all over the world. The commercial revolution was one of the important reasons we have been seeing the colonies all over the world, where the trade routes which were found by the traders and businessmen were largely utilized for the administrative and political control of those regions. And India is the largely example of that particular. Okay. Then comes your sixth, which is industrial revolution. Industrial revolution. Now, before industrial revolution, there was no factory system. Products were made on the basis of hands. So, artisans, craftsmen, they were largely important sections of that particular society, because everything was made on the basis of hand. So, handmade products were important. With the rise of technological changes, technological innovation like steam engine, wheels, which we have been seeing in the industrial revolution, that led to the larger change of society in the terms of economy, that now the economic system has transformed from handmade system to factory system. Okay, so handmade system to factory system, where things have been made on the basis of machine. Large quantity can be produced of similar standards in less time and cheap products. So the family system of economy, where there was a value to artisans, craftsmen, etc., have changed to machine system. Okay. Now compare this with deindustrialization of Indian economic system after the British rule. So the industrial revolution, which taken birth in Europe, has led to the deindustrialization of Indian economic system. So the artisans, the craftsmen, who were largely an important section of society for the economic needs, now their work was challenged by the industry-made goods, which were imported cheaply into the India by the British companies or the British traders. As they were cheap, people were bound to buy those products rather than buying the expensive handmade products of artisans and handicrafts. So the cotton industries, artistic industries, artisan industry all taken a setback during this deindustrialization phase of British rule in Indian society. Hence, there was a large ruralization of masses, which you must have heard in your history classes. That how these artisans, handicraftsmen, etc., they were forced to go back to the rural areas, which led to the larger or increase in the pressure on agriculture and economy, and hence larger change to the Indian society. Okay, so that is domain of your modern history, but understand the connection here. So this economic change was also forcing some social change in the society. How? That if there is a factory system, that means it needs labor to produce. From where this labor will come? This labor will come from the rural areas. Okay, so industrial setups, the factory system was majorly concentrated in the urban centers, and there was a start of migration from rural areas to urban areas because of the need of labor to work in those factories. Now, as the people are migrating, that means there is change in the family system, because not the whole family was migrating, only the person who was necessary to do the work, he was migrating. This led to the rise of slums also, because capitalist focus is on what? This industrial economy, industrial revolution will run only on the basis of profit, only on the basis of profit. So for profit, whatever the capitalists need to do, whose focus is nothing but capturing as much capital as possible, they will hire as much cheap labor is, so they will not pay them right amount of money which was needed for their work, which was required for their work. Hence the rise of slums, marginalization of poverty, marginalization of people who are working in those factory systems. Now children and women also started to work in those factories, because they were also part of the larger workforce. They are also providing much cheap labor than the adult male. Okay. With this rise of slums, with this continuation of division of labor, with this coming of children and women in this labor force, there was also rise of urbanization. So there were a lot of social changes which were happening in that particular point of time because of industrial revolution. So industrial revolution is not only an economic change but also a social change. Because of this economic revolution, there was a need for larger economic change in the society. Not economic change, larger political change in the society. Because this industrial revolution will only suffice, will only work if the political setup is supporting that industrial revolution. Hence the demand of democracy, hence the demand of liberty, hence the demand of free marketing. Okay, which was provided by the another important significant event of late 18th century, which was your French Revolution. So the people of France, who were going through lot of problems in their life because of the rule of clergy and nobility, they started to challenge that particular authority. Okay, we are not going to talk about the events of French Revolution, which is, you will be already dealing about that in your world history classes or your world history content from wherever you have been reading. So French Revolution and the commoners started to fight against the nobles and clergy, and there was a revolution which led to the larger change, not only related to France but the larger society. So there was a birth of democratic rights, democracy. There was a birth of liberty, equality, and fraternity. The three trinity of your fundamental rights. It impacted not only France but the larger society at such. The global level, its impact was seen in Europe, in India also. Okay, in modern history, you must have been seeing that how we have been taken inspiration from France to fight against the Britishers. Okay, so the political setup changed. It has also led to the large of supported the economy by supporting the free market economy. Why there is a need of free market economy? So one of the major proponents of free market economy is Adam Smith. He talks about that if the state is not controlling the economy, and the economy should not be in closed system, it should be a free system, that every individual has a choice to do whatever they want to do in the market. Why? That if support a businessman is setting up a business without giving any taxes, without the state control, he can generate, although his major focus is generating profit, but he can also provide employment to the larger population. He can provide innovation, he can provide technological changes in the society. Hence, he was a supporter of the free market economy. Okay, so these were the important intellectual events which led to the birth of our, which led to the social change at a larger level. So the old Europe, which was focusing on the traditional beliefs which were largely dictated by the religion, the political system which was focusing on monarchy, the economic system which was focusing on closed system, everything which was controlled by religion started to challenged by the different events which we have just seen. That was nothing but a social change which led to the birth of new Europe. So this was nothing but modernization. So what is modernization? Modernization is a process. Process for what? Process for the transformation of society based on old traditional beliefs to the new modern beliefs. Okay, and this process has still been continuing. This process has still been continuing. When we talk about the postmodernism, it talks about nothing but the new changes which we have been seeing, on the new transformation which we have been seeing on the basis of internet, artificial intelligence, etc. Okay, so this process was the cause for modernity. This process was cause for what? Modernity. Now, what is modernity? So, modernity is the outcome of this modernization process, where we have been seeing the rise of focus on equality, democracy, fraternity, industrial revolution, etc. etc. Okay. Now, was this too smooth? No, this was not too smooth. It took hundreds of years to, change old Europe to new Europe. But at same point of time, there was counter enlightenment. So this modernity, which we consider right now as a very positive approach, has led to the various changes in the society, not only positive sense but also in the negative sense. Positive sense changes we have seen. So what are the negative changes? So there were a lot of social chaos. Okay, as we have seen during the social changes in industrial revolution, migration was happening, family system was changing, there was rise of individualism rather than focusing on collectivism, which is the core of traditional societies. Religion was being challenged, secularism was rising, but at the same point of time, religion is also important. Social solidarity, social integration was decreasing. Okay, so to question the positive outcomes of this, negative outcomes of this modernity, there was a rise of counter enlightenment movements. That for them, suppose one says that yes, industrial revolution is good, French revolution is good, but what about the new problems which society has been seeing? What about the social chaos which we have been seeing? What about the social problems related to migration, lack of rights to the workers, the poverty, increasing poverty and inequality in the society, the degradation of family system, the disorganization of the individual itself? What about those problems? Okay, so here come new important personalities which you can talk about, like Emile Durkheim. That whatever the changes we have been seeing, okay, that's good. These changes should happen. But these particular changes has led to the decrease in social integration, and there is decrease of social regulation. That now the religious beliefs, religious practices, religious traditions which were earlier controlling the society, which were earlier bringing integrity in the society, their role has been decreased because of the social changes we have been seeing because of this modernity. So who is going to control, who is going to bring stability, who is going to bring integrity in the society? This is leading to nothing but anomy in the society. This term which we will be dealing when we will be talking about the Emile Durkheim in the later lectures. So who is going to talk about this anomy problem which they have been facing? Yes, industrial revolution has led to the division of labor, that there are specialized tasks that the people have to do. But this specialization is also pathological in nature. It is creating problems among workers. So who is going to provide solutions for that? Okay. Then your Karl Marx. That whatever the industrial revolution, French revolution we have, that French revolution, industrial revolution, the benefits of those revolution have only been enjoyed by the few sections. And for him, the French revolution, industrial revolution was only instigated by the businessmen and traders. The common people have not gotten any benefit from these revolutions. But these revolutions have largely created more inequality in the society. The industrial revolution has led to the birth of machines. Factory system has been set up now. But what about the poverty it has created? What about the class distinctions it has created? That the profits and benefits are only enjoyed by the capitalist sections. Why? Because they own all the modes of production. Forces of productions are in their hand. They own all the land, own the capital. What about the poor person who is working in the factories? Nobody is talking about him. Earlier, work was used to be enjoyed by the people. Whatever they have been doing, they were doing. Some craftsman, if he is crafting something, he was enjoying that craft. Why? Because it was coming from him within himself. But now he has to work like a mechanical clock who has to just do a one particular task. Okay. For example, this remote. Somebody will be making buttons, somebody will be making back cover, somebody will be making front cover, somebody will be making batteries. But they're not enjoying because that is become a routine task which is done by the machines. They are supervising them. So there is no happiness in that particular task which they have been doing. There is degradation of work. This degradation of work has led to the alienation of people, alienation of worker from the process, from the people, from the co-worker and from self. So he has given the concept known as alienation. Okay, we will be dealing about this also in detail when we are talking about Karl Marx in the detail. So there is degradation of work, people have become mechanical clocks. Then comes your Max Weber. Yet, yes, there is a rise of capitalism. The industrial revolution has led to the rise of jobs, machines, etc., etc. Because of profit making, the people have to focus on rationalism. As we have been seeing, how the scientific revolution has led to the birth of rationality. So, for the rationalism or the rationality of profit, there is rise of new kind of authority, which is bureaucracy, which will be doing the work which is assigned to them by the upper people or upper class people. So as they are doing the same kind of work, this is nothing but again routinization of their task, and hence they can become iron cage of bureaucracy. That they will not vouch for looking innovation, looking solving the problems of the masses, but they will only adhere to the dictates, adhere to the rules which have been made by the people who are hiring them, or who are people using them for increasing rationality in the capitalist system. Okay. Then there is Auguste Comte. Who was also very much questioning the modernity and the changes which it had brought, that there is lot of social chaos, there is lot of social problems which we have to focus upon. Now we need to find solution. So hence he was one of the prominent personalities, the first persons who talks about that we need to find solutions to the social chaos or problems which the society have been seeing because of those changes from Renaissance period to the Industrial Revolution. Okay, that there is a need for one particular discipline, one particular subject which can answer that why this social problem has been happening and what can be solution. Hence he gave the term social physics. That as physics is very much important to understand the natural laws, and we need to find solutions to these particular social problems. Hence he gave the name social physics, which later changed into sociology. Okay. He says that as society has been moving, society has been changing, there is one social statics and there is other social dynamics. What is this social statics means here? That few things are static in society. Just like few things are static in physics, mathematics, etc., there are few things which are static in society. What are those statics? That there will be some social institutions like family, religion, etc., they are static in society. But there will be some changes. Dynamics means there are some changes in the society, like how the social relationships changes in society. Okay, so we need to understand and give importance to both social statics and social dynamics. And for that, sociology is very much important. So for him, sociology is trying to understand the problems, of society. So it is descriptive. It is, while analyzing those problems, it is also trying to find out the solutions to those problems, and hence it is prescriptive. So it is descriptive science as well as prescriptive science. Okay. So if a question comes around that, what is the importance of sociology? The first problem is already highlighted by Auguste Comte, that it is necessary to understand, analyze and find solutions to whatever the social problems and social changes we have been seeing in society. Okay. There is another important approach which Auguste Comte has highlighted, that is positivism. Positivism generally means looking at what the real situation is. That means focusing on reality. So for him, as the earlier natural sciences subjects like economy, like physics, chemistry, biology, etc., they have been focusing on about the things which they can observe, and they can do experiment, they can focus on objectivity on that particular part. We should be also focusing on that particular approach when we are going to try to understand society at a larger level. That there are some patterns of behavior, which we need to focus upon. What are those patterns of behavior? That there are some recurrent things which are going to happen again and again. So sociology's focus is to understand those patterns of social behavior. That why this particular religion is important, why this particular institution of family, why this particular institution of polity has been interacting in this particular way. So we have to give focus on that pattern of social behavior. Okay, and that can be understood only on the basis of reality which we are seeing. So here the focus is mainly on bringing objectivity, empiricism, and focusing more on facts, logic, rationality to understand the society. And this is necessary. Why? Because we have to make a larger general theory. As in biology, as in physics, as in chemistry, we have different theories to understand the changes. Okay. For that type, we also need how we are going to look society. So there should be general theory on the basis of which the social problems, social changes can be explained. So as the larger focus is on general theory framework, this school of thought is known as macro school of thought. But is this feasible? Because everywhere the pattern is different. Everywhere the pattern is different. Everywhere the society is different. How can you say that whatever the general parameters which you have made on the basis of family of Europe is relevant for understanding the family of India? That is different. So we should not focus on that particular approach. Okay. Then there was birth of different school of thoughts, which I will talk you in the later in the lecture. Okay. Now this was the first slide where we talked about the syllabus of paper 1. Now look at the Renaissance period, which is nothing but rebirth, reawakening of idea, basically in art and human potential. So what was the Renaissance? The Renaissance was a period of cultural, artistic and intellectual revival in Europe, it marked the transition from medieval age to modern age. Okay. What were the key features? There was a focus on humanism, human beings, their potential and achievements, revival of classical learnings like the revival of or rediscovery of Greek, Roman knowledge, literature and philosophy and art. Then there was focus on art, which we have talked about in the paintings of Mona Lisa. Then there was focus on scientific inquiry. Now, when we see here that Renaissance had a focus on somewhat focus on scientific inquiry, that means scientific revolution, which we have earlier talked about, is nothing but an extension of Renaissance. Okay, and spread of knowledge, which we have seen in the reformist movement, where there was focus on printing press and education, which helps to spread the ideas very easily. Okay, now what changed during Renaissance? So from God centered, there was a change in thinking from God centered to human centered thinking. That medieval period focused on God and afterlife, whereas Renaissance shifted focus on human life, dignity and its potential, which led to the birth of what? The idea of humanism and individual thinking. Then there was a change from tradition to inquiry and reason. That earlier knowledge was based on tradition and religious dogmas. Now people questioned, observed and sought evidence, which led to the birth of modern critical thinking approach, that whatever we will be seeing, we will be starting to criticize it, or we will start to have reason or logic, find out reason and logic about that particular thing. Okay, then from symbolic art to realism and creativity, that Renaissance art showed what is the realism, what will be the perspectives of different emotions in art. Then freedom from feudalism to strong nation states, learning from elitist learning to wider education, from local world to global exploration, which we have seen in the form of commercial revolution, and from church authority to reform and dialogue, as we have seen in reformist. Okay. Then scientific revolution. Who were the great scientists? Copernicus. You can talk about Copernicus. Why? Because he was one of the major proponents who have given the heliocentric theory, that sun and not the earth is at the center of universe. So Copernicus challenged the church, who were saying that earth is at the center and everything revolves around the earth. So they focused on objectivity, they focused on mathematical calculations, they focused on facts, observation, hence find out the truth related to whatever the nature we have and how that is related to understanding of society at a larger level. Scientific revolution basically started to question nature and the beliefs on nature which are made by the religion. Okay. Then Galileo, who used observation and experimentation to understand the universe. Then Johannes Kepler, who have just supported the Copernicus theory related to understanding of orbits of earth. Okay. Then Isaac Newton, who gave us a law of gravitation. Then your Albert Einstein, who talks about space, time and energy, that whatever the space, time, energy has been bending, we have been seeing that on the basis of objectivity. Okay. Then enlightened thinkers and ideas, where Locke talks about social contract, that there has to be natural rights. Natural rights are liberty, life and property, which no one can take away from an individual. Then there should be limited government, power should be limited to protect natural rights, not to suppress the individuals. And right to resistance, people can resist the oppressive rules. And he talks about tabula rasa. What does it mean? He says that human mind is a blank state. Human mind is a blank state. So whatever you are seeing in yourself, that is nothing but on the basis of socialization which the society is having on you. If the society is corrupt, your thinking will be corrupt. If the society is divine, your thinking will be divine. So society is dictating your human mind. Okay, so human mind is made on the basis of whatever the social conditioning, whatever the socialization you have been seeing in your life. Okay, so mind is blank slate at birth. Knowledge comes from the social experience, social observation which we have around us. Then comes your Rousseau. Rousseau talks about general will. That sovereignty, the rule of government should be on the basis of collectivity, should be on the basis of will of the people, not on the will of the only few sections of the society. So sovereignty lies in the people collectivity, not in individuals. He also support social contract. Then Montesquieu talks about separation of power, that whatever the power we have, there should be separation of power. Suppose today we don't have separation of powers in legislative, executive and judiciary, what will happen? The executive will only rule according to their own whims and fancies. Should be no control by the legislative, there should be no control by the accountability, and there will be no control by the judiciary. Okay, so he talks about that there should be separation of powers, there should be checks and balances on each other power centers. Okay, he also talks about rule of law, that laws, not individuals, should govern. Suppose a king says that we should be killing that particular persons. Why? Because they are not supporting my rule. That should not be the case, na? The case should be that what wrongdoing they have been done on the larger part. The law should be dictating, and that this law should be equal and right. Okay. Then comes your Thomas Hobbes. He also is a major proponent of social contract theory. Then Voltaire. Voltaire talks about freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of belief. Then Adam Smith, who is founder of modern economics, who talks about free market economy. Then Mary Wollstonecraft. He is a major proponent person who was talking about gender equality during those Enlightenment phase. That this Enlightenment thinkers, their major focus is only on the male parameter, not on the female parameter. Okay, so she talks about women's right, where there should be equality between men and women. He also talks about that women are rational beings, not meant only for the domestic roles, which were getting prominent after the Industrial Revolution. Then French Revolution, where we got liberty, equality and fraternity. A revolution which not only changed France, but the global order. What were the key causes? We should be not diving that into that much for the sociological part. What changed during French Revolution is important. So it led to the end of absolute monarchy. So there was a rise of common rule, that there should be democracy. Okay. So divine right of kings was rejected. People proved that they could challenge and overthrow an unjust rule. There was focus on citizenship and fundamental rights, that people became citizens with equal rights. Ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity become foundation of a new society. There was a rise of legal and political reforms. Feudal privileges, which we have seen in the one kind of privy purse after the post-independence time, those kinds of changes were done. The feudal privileges were abolished, laws were made equal for all, a modern legal and administrative system was introduced. Then power in the hands of people, decline of church dominance, promotion of meritocracy, that the selection should not be on the basis of caste, selection should be based on the basis of merit. Inspiration for the world. Okay. Then Industrial Revolution. There was change in economy, there was change in society, where people moved from rural to areas to cities, growth of urban population and slums. New social classes emerged, where we have been seeing that industrialists were upper class, workers were lower class. Then there was a rise of middle class. If we talk about Max Weber, for Karl Marx, there was only two classes, which we will be seeing later on in the Karl Marx lecture. Okay. Then work and labor, machines replaced manual worker, but there was disenchantment among the workers. They were not, feeling connected to the work which they were doing. So division of labor increased, women and children entered to the workforce, trade unions and labor movements emerged in workers' rights, which was later seen in the England. Technological, there was a rise of steam engine, power loom, steel production, etc. Innovation became driver of progress. Transport and communication, environment started to get challenged, and there was a political and world impact, which I have told you earlier, that how it has commercial revolution, industrial revolution has led to the rise of colonization and deindustrialization of global south. Okay. Now the counter enlightenment period, that why they question enlightenment and the changes, because there was excessive trust in reasons. It questioned the idea that human reason alone can solve all problems and led to truth, which was not seen. If the only focus on reason and logic could have been solving all the problems, why could religion should be existing at this particular point of time? Okay, so religion has larger role to play in the society, rather than we have seen what and how the church was using it. In every time, whenever you are distressed, you tend to focus on God. Okay. Then individualism and self-interest, that how this modern change, which is leading to individualism, is going to solve all the problems of society. So question the belief that individual rights and personal interests should be on the basis of society. The society traditionally is based on the collective system. Till now in India, kinship system, family system, religion is very much important, and those are collective things, collective institutions, not individual institutions. That's the reason whenever a individual move out of their home, they feel very much disconnected from the larger world because they are still connected with the family and kinship members at their home. Then rejection of traditions, that long-standing traditions which we have been following from the larger period of time, and you are rejecting every tradition should not be wrong. But you cannot be rejecting every tradition. You should be rejecting only the wrong ones. So they started to question different ideas of modernity which we have seen earlier. Okay. Then the major thinkers which we have seen, Auguste Comte, Karl Marx, Max Weber, Emil Durkheim, etc. You can also talk about this, but there is no that such need of us to read about these thinkers. Okay. Now, then this larger chart which highlights whatever we have talked till now, that there was a dark age, and from the dark age we led to the rise of modernity. What were the social changes which we have seen? Enlightenment, which led to the rise of reason; scientific revolution; industrial society, which led to the further rise of rapid urbanization, new classes, and the decreasing role of religion was supported by the rise of secularism. Then economic changes, commercial revolution, industrial revolution, market forces, capitalism, division of labor. Political changes, French Revolution, which led to the rise of democracy, rule of law, freedom, equality, and liberty, and intellectual antecedents. Okay, so this is highlighted by T.B. Baltimore. Okay, then this is whatever the social changes we have been seeing. This is nothing but a philosophy of history, that the society has moved through a social evolution. Social evolution from historical time. Like Auguste Comte says that the society has moved from theological stage to metaphysical stage to the scientific stage. So he gave three-stage theory of social evolution. What do we mean by theological stage? That the theological stage, the society is based on what? Religion. Religion dictates everything here. This is what your period of dark age would be confined. From this religion period, role of religion, the society will move towards to metaphysical stage. What this metaphysical stage is? Then when there will be the rise of natural laws. That rather than focusing on religion, we will start focus on the nature. Nature will dictate whatever the society is going through here. Okay, and we will start to question about that particular part, which we have been seeing during the Renaissance and Enlightenment period. Then there will be scientific stage. What is this scientific stage? That everything which we have been seeing in nature, in the natural laws, we will start questioning that on the basis of reason and logic. We will ask that why this particular thing has been existing, even though the nature has been saying that this is existing, but why? What is the reason behind that? What is the logic behind that? So this is how the society moves from theological stage to metaphysical to scientific stage. Okay, this is nothing but known as linear theory of social change, which you will again read in your chapter 10 of paper 1, which is about social change in modern society. Okay. Then scientific approach, that whatever the society we have been seeing, that should be seen from a scientific approach. Okay, so let me clarify more about the scientific approach here. We have seen that how Auguste Comte has said the society should be governed, should be known or should be learned on the basis of natural laws, hence the positivistic approach, the reality. Similarly, Herbert Spencer also talks about that part. For Herbert Spencer, he was following the Darwinism approach, the approach of Darwin. Darwin has given us approach related to survival of fittest, the biological theory of social evolution. So he says that like as the organisms have developed as propounded by the Darwin, similarly social evolution or society has also evolved on the basis of that. Okay, so he has given that how the organs have developed according to Darwin. He considered that for the social institutions, social revolution, social relationships. That social relationships, social institutions also develop like organs. As each organ is necessary for the human beings or for animals, similarly, each social institution, each social relationship is necessary for society to survive. A similar approach was highlighted by Emil Durkheim. Okay, so Herbert Spencer, Emil Durkheim, and Auguste Comte, all these are nothing but positivist thinkers whose focus, or naturalist thinkers whose focus is on making sociology a scientific study. Making sociology a scientific study where we should be focusing on objectivity, rationality, logic, empiricism, etc., etc. Okay, which we will be seeing in Sociology as Science, the second chapter. So this is what Mortimer wants to talk about, that there has to be a scientific approach. Then biological theory of evolution, as we have seen in the Herbert Spencer wala case. Then political philosophy and surveys of social conditions, that whatever the political changes as highlighted by French Revolution and all, that is also very much intellectual antecedents for our modernity. Similarly, the social conditions, how we will be knowing about the social conditions, the people who are facing challenges or changes in the because of the change in society after French Revolution, Industrial Revolution. So for that, surveys is very much important, because survey give us the real view of whatever the challenges or problems they have been facing. Okay, this all is nothing but extension of the earlier ones. Why have I have put on this as an earlier as a different row? Because it has asked in PYQs as such, that what are the intellectual antecedents related to birth or emergence of sociology. So you can use this particular approach of TB bottom. Okay. Now, what are these social challenges or social changes, economic changes and political changes have led to? They have led to the rise of different social challenges like poverty, breakdown of traditional norms, weaker community ties, individualism and disintegration of family and kinship system, and the rise of new crimes in the urban area. Similarly, economic challenges, labor exploitation, the rising poverty and inequality, the poor living conditions, the rise of anomie and alienation, as we have seen in Karl Marx and Emil Durkheim case. Then political challenges, the political instability, that earlier monarchical rule was continued for a very long period of time, but now as the social chaos has been increasing, there is no permanent political rule which can rule the society and which can provide guidance to the society. Chaos and disorder in the society and collapse of traditional authority. Okay, these changes and challenges result in chaos and disorder in the society, which prompted thinkers to investigate about individual and society, that what will be the relationship between individual and society, and search for patterns, regularities and processes on the basis of which we will be understanding these. And hence this becomes the subject matter of sociology, and we see the birth of sociology as a distinct subject to understand changes and challenges, and the problems arise from these changes and challenges. Okay, so this was your emergence of sociology. Then, what are the characteristics of early sociology? The early sociology, which we have been seeing in this particular phase, where we have discussed about philosophy of history, scientific approach, biological theory of evolution, political philosophy and survey of social condition. This was based on nothing but 4 or 5 different characteristics which were highlighted by T.B. Mortimer again in his work, A Guide to Problems and Literature of Sociology. Okay, so he says that the early sociology, which was propagated by positivism school of thought by Auguste Comte, Emile Durkheim, Herbert Spencer, etc., that is encyclopedic. What does that encyclopedic means? What is encyclopedia? Encyclopedia gives you information about all the words which you can see in the world, the meanings of those words, how you can utilize them in your language. Okay, so he says that the society problems, societal changes we have been seeing, they can be understood by the sociology. So sociology should not be considered as a narrow subject, but is a large subject and a specialized discipline which is going to understand about the society and social changes at a larger level. Okay, hence it can be called as queen of social sciences. So this queen of social sciences, sociology, is going to synthesize all human history and social institutions and give you descriptive and analytical analysis of those. Okay, then the other characteristics of early sociologists, which is highlighted by T.B. Mortimer, is evolutionary. Okay, like how the Herbert Spencer's theory of social evolution was, based on the Charles Darwin theory. Similarly, he says that the history which we have been seeing in society is based on the evolution of human history from different stages, like Auguste Comte's 3-stage evolution. Similarly, in the later lectures, we will be seeing that how Karl Marx highlights that social evolution or society has evolved from different stages. That earlier there was a primitive communism which changed into slave society, slave to feudal society, feudal to capitalist society, and then he talks about 2 futuristic societies which we will be dealing about later. Then positivistic, where the focus will be on making it a natural science and understanding the society as such we understand the physics and biology. Okay, that methods used to study physical world like observation, experimentation, classification, etc. could be used to study the social world. And hence last characteristic is ideological, that it will provide an ideology that how we are going to analyze and talk about social changes or social challenges which we'll be facing in. Okay, then comes your second topic, which is about scope of sociology and nature of sociology. Now, what do we mean by scope of sociology and what do we mean by nature of sociology? So for scope of sociology, the simple meaning is what sociology is going to talk about or what sociology is going to focus about. What will be the subject matter of sociology? Okay, simply this scope means what the sociology is going to talk about. And the nature of sociology means how this sociology is going to talk about different social contexts. Okay, so scope means what, nature means. Now, what will be the scope of sociology? Now, remember the definition of sociology which we have highlighted in the orientation lecture. That sociology is nothing but a discipline, a subject which is going to systematically study social institutions, human behavior, social processes, social relationships, and social change. So, those 5 things which we have written there are nothing but the subject matter of sociology. Are nothing but subject matter of sociology. That it will study social institutions or social structures. Okay, so study of patterns of social relationships, groups, organizations, and institutions that make up the society, like family, religion, kinship, polity, etc. etc. Then it will understand the social processes. What are those social processes? Social interaction, how two people are interacting each other. Okay. Then social institutions like education, economy, polity, state, social issues and problems. What are the different problems the society has been going through? For that reason only society has taken birth. Social change, how the society has been changing, what kind of changes are relevant for the society or not. Comparative and global perspectives, where we will try to compare different social changes or social institutions with each other. Okay. So this is a general framework related to scope of sociology. There is another framework related to scope of sociology which you can write about in the form of thinkers. Okay, like for Auguste Comte, sociology's subject matter or scope is to find out the solutions of social problems which we have been seeing in the society. So it analyzes and provides solutions to social problems. Second, Emil Durkheim. The scope of sociology or subject matter of sociology is to study social facts. Study social facts. Social facts are generally those ways of acting, feeling, or thinking which act upon an individual, which are general in nature, which are exterior to an individual and caused that individual to do that particular task. For example, the role of religion in an individual. Okay. So religion helps us to think. Religion helps us to act. Religion helps us to feel in a certain way. So religion is a social fact. If religion talks about, if on the basis of religion talks about that you should be marrying in that particular age group, that for 25 to 30 age group is that age group you should be getting marriage. Okay. So the thinking of our parents is that अब तो उम्र निकलती जा रही है, शादी करो. So religion is forcing us to think about that particular age group. Okay. Remember in ancient history wala, where in Varnashram Dharma there are different age groups they have been talking about. Then religion is giving us feeling that yes, marriage is necessary, marriage is universal. In our religious doctrines, it has been talking about marriage. And on the basis of that thinking, feeling, we tend to act. That yes, this is nothing but a religious duty that we have to get marriage. Hence, we say that marriage has a religious sanction. It is a religious duty. That's the reason there are different rituals, roles, or functions related to religion which we see in every Hindu wedding. Okay, so this is a simplest example of that. Then, for Max Weber, the subject matter of sociology or the scope of sociology is understanding social action. A social action which has meaning and a goal attached to it. Which has a meaning and goal attached to it. That whatever the action two individuals are having, there has to be some meaning to that action. There has to be some goal to that action. That if you are going on a date with someone else, there has to be some meaning to go on that particular date. There has to be some goal. कोई जा रहा है, somebody is going just for a, temporary relationship. Somebody is going from a permanent relationship. So that is the goal. That is the meaning attached to that particular. Okay. So there are different approaches for the thinkers. Similarly, C. Red Mills, he talks about that the scope of sociology is nothing but understanding the private issues from the public domain. So he talks about sociological imagination. Then there is different view of Talcott Parson, then there is a different view of others also. For Karl Marx, it is related to understanding about social conflict, that how two classes are in conflict with each other, and social revolution. For radicalists, this is about revolution and social change at the larger level. Okay, so there are different scopes. So these four you can write about. Then what is the nature? Nature means what? We have seen that how we are going to read about or how we are going to find about the solutions related to sociology. Okay. So sociological perspective is nothing but seeing general in particular and seeing strange in familiar. So sociological nature or nature of sociology is nothing but seeing general in particular and seeing strange in familiar. Now what does it mean? Seeing general in particular. That whatever the relationships, social interactions you have been seeing in the society, you tend to find out that why this particular domain, social institution, social relationship has been continuing in this way. Why there cannot be different way. Okay, for example, suppose a person who is enrolled in any college to get his master's degree. Okay, suddenly you find out that that person has left his education. So this is a particular case. Suppose this was case only for one person from 50 students. So one particular person has left his education midway. Okay. So sociology will not focus only on this particular event. Sociology should focus on that how this particular event has happened. That means finding out is there can be a generalization or general approach related to finding out this particular thing. That what if this left out of education or leaving education midway is depends on the class position of an individual. That means what if only poor people leave education midway? What if this is dependent on the economy of society? What if this is dependent on the caste rules? What if this is dependent on religion, gender, race, etc.? We see female are not, diving deep into learning about scientific education, STEM education, say they are deprived. So there is a general thing, na? Just for some, this is particular. Yes, women are not focused on that much upon the STEM education, but we sociologists or we as a sociology student tend to find out that why there is this behavior and how it can be a general behavior at the larger level. Hence, we tend to find out that the patriarchy itself protects women or discriminates women to go into the STEM education because they consider them as weak parameters or weak persons to understand about STEM education. Okay, so sociology focus on seeing general in particular. A particular incident may be we tend to find out what is the general discrimination we have. Okay, suppose take another example. Suppose there is a housing society. There's a large city. A group lives there, B group lives there, C groups live there. All people of C community or C compartment, they belong to poor class. Here higher class, here upper middle class and lower middle class. So this is a particular setup, but this setup we see at the larger level in different societies also. Hence, would focus on seeing general in particular. Then what is strange in familiar? Suppose 50 students are sitting in one particular class and teacher asks them about that if they have any doubt and nobody talks, raises his or her hand, and suddenly one particular person raises his hand that I want to ask a question about whatever you have taught till now. So that is seeing strange in familiar. That how in familiar setup, even belonging to that familiar class, only one student raise his or her hand to ask a question about that. We tend to find out the questions related to that strange behavior. That is strange for the other students. Okay. So what is how we are going to focus about that strange behavior? That maybe his socialization is such that he should be asking questions for every other curiosity which he or she has in her or his mind. But if that particular person wants to know more about that particular thing, that is again belonging to the different social positions which the person has been living on. A kid coming from a humble background, you will certainly see them that they are not asking any questions in the classes. But a kid coming from a high class family or an upper middle class family, they tend to ask more questions in the classes. Okay, so that is how strange in familiar. Now, why this saying general in particular and strange in familiar is important? Because with this, you tend to understand about social location of an individual. Social location or social position of an individual. This seeing general in particular and strange in familiar help us to find out that how you can look for marginalization of some sections of society. Marginalization of some sections of society. That how people have been marginalized, deprived, discriminated on the basis of race, ethnicity, gender, etc. etc. Okay. So the nature of sociology is focusing on scientific thought. It is focused on holistic, as we have been seen earlier in the TB Bottomer approach, encyclopedic approach. It is dynamic, that it examines society as constantly changing and not static. Hence, Auguste Comte has divided that we should be focusing on social statics as well as social dynamics. Similarly, humanistic focuses on human experience, human behavior, as talks about Max Weber when he talks about social action. Then applied helps in solving real life problems. Empirical, it relies on facts and evidences. Suppose if we are not focusing on evidences or facts to understand the social reality, our social reality is nothing but common sense, which was what C. Mills was talking about. That the sociology should not be commonsensical. Commonsensical means what? A sense which is common, which is taken for granted knowledge, which is utilized by the larger world to understand any social problem. Okay. Then it is comprehensive, covering wide range of topics, different social structures, social institutions, etc. etc. It is value neutral, which we will be dealing about later when we talk about sociology as science. We will be talking about Max Weber in its approach. Interdisciplinary, that it uses history, politics, economy, etc. to find out the larger reasons for the larger problems. And it is culturally sensitive, that means it understands the diversity of different cultures and tries to give reasons for that differences and discrimination. Okay. So this was for today's lecture related to your first chapter, Sociology, the discipline. I hope the issues which we have related to understanding a particular concept that we have not been able to understand it in a simplistic framework, that has been solved here. I will be dropping all these images in the Telegram channel of Sunya as related to sociology. You can look for those particular parts. In the next lecture, we will deal about the remaining part of this chapter, which is about difference of sociology or other social sciences, and sociology and common sense. Okay. Similarly, in the next class itself, we will look at some PYQs and try to at least understand about keywords rather than writing the full answers. Okay, because for answer writing you needs to have some patience. That patience will come, as such we will be improving in our understanding of sociological concepts and the sociology syllabus. Okay, so this was all for today's class. Till then, take care. Goodbye.